To turn you now to the breaking news story we've been following out of Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. There was an explosion at a mosque there. Our Charles Stratford has been following this developing story. We have him now live. So, Charles, what more do we know now?
Well, earlier on we were getting reports that there had been a number of casualties and indeed one death. I can now certainly confirm, according to the Ministry of Information, that say that there were 16 people injured in what they say was a grenade attack, a grenade thrown in to that mosque after Friday prayers today. Now, this is the Anwar Mosque. It's the largest mosque in Addis Ababa. It's important to recognise that Muslim-Christian relations in this country have been largely pretty good over recent years. There certainly hasn't been an incident like this before. We went down to the mosque and were actually detained by police down there. They stopped us from filming and confiscated our IDs and our accreditation and wouldn't allow us to even sit in our car, let alone speak to people in the area. They were using their batons to try and clear people away from us. So certainly a lot of tension around that mosque and in Addis this evening. But as I say, certainly the Ministry of Information reporting 16 people injured and no deaths.
Charles, though this is happening at a time of increasing political tension in some parts of Ethiopia, what does the government think about that? Are they speculating that there's a connection to that?
Well, that's right. It's very important to put context on what's happened today. Certainly in recent weeks there have been reports of increasing political tension and violent protests in some of the areas of Western Oromia. Now, the Oromo people are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia, and they have for many years accused the government of ignoring their political, economic and cultural rights here. Now, these protests are over what the Oromo people say is, again, their rights being ignored by a government plan to what it describes as expand development out of Addis into that area. Now, the Oromo people and certainly the activists and opposition here saying that people are being evicted from their land and their cultural and political rights are being ignored, and that's what these protests have been over. Now, we hear that there have been a number of people killed in those protests. Now, activists bandy some fairly large figures out there in terms of deaths, certainly more than 10, according to opposition figures that we've spoken to in recent days. The government does acknowledge that there have been deaths at these protests and has said that it wants to launch an investigation as to who was responsible for them. Now, we've spoken to activists on the phone in villages. They say there's a heavy police presence there. But back to today's story, it was interesting that the Ministry of Information told me over the telephone that he's blaming this grenade attack at this mosque on people trying to foment confusion and more panic in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa in the context of this kind of political tension amongst certain members, certain groups of the Oromo ethnic group here in Ethiopia.
All right, Charles Stratford reporting live for us from Addis Ababa. Thank you.